Hello, very good morning to all of you. Dear students, we are discussing here the carbohydrate chapter, and in last two lectures we have started the analysis of carbohydrates found in the food materials and food products. Okay, so this is our third lecture, and in this lecture we are continuing our study for the analysis of food. Okay, now the specific analysis of mono and oligosaccharides. Last time we have discussed about the HPLC methods and different stationary phases as well as detectors which are used in the HPLC analysis of mono and oligosaccharides found in the food samples. Today our topic is analysis by the use of gas chromatography. Okay, so this is gas chromatography or gas liquid chromatography, let us say. It provides both qualitative and quantitative analysis of carbohydrates just like HPLC. Okay, then for GC, sugars must be converted into volatile derivatives. Okay, so the sugars, that is mono and oligosaccharides, before going to analysis by gas chromatography, we have to convert them into volatile derivatives. We know that this is the main principle of gas chromatography. The sample must be either in gas phase or it must be converted into gas or vapors at a column temperature. Means we have to convert these mono and oligosaccharides by derivatization. Okay, and that derivatives are volatile derivatives. But the problem of GC is that two separation steps are involved. Okay, so in this case, two preparation steps are involved in this case, not separation. First one is the reduction of aldehyde groups into primary alcohol groups. Reduction of aldehyde. Okay, for example, glucose is there, so glucose is containing free aldehyde group CHO. Okay, so that group is converted into primary alcohol groups. And second one is conversion of that reduced sugar into a volatile peracetate ester. Volatile peracetate ester to peracetate ester or per trimethylsilyl ether derivative. Okay, so these derivatives must be done. Okay, then for the neutral sugars, the procedure is like that. First step is reduction to alditols. Means we have aldehydes or aldohexose, let us say aldohexose or aldopentose or aldose sugars, let us say, means they are containing a free aldehyde group. We have to convert them by reduction process into alditols. Means CHO group is converted into CH2OH group. Okay, so neutral sugars from the 80% ethanol extract of that food or from hydrolysis of polysaccharides. Okay, hydrolysis of polysaccharides gives you monosaccharides. Okay, and these are reduced with an excess of sodium or potassium borohydride, NaBH4 or KBH4. This is a reducing agent for best reducing agent for the aldehydes functional group. So NaBH4 or KBH4 is used, which is dissolved in dilute ammonium hydroxide solution. Dilute ammonium hydroxide solution is used. Okay, so the reaction is shown here. So this is, let us say, for top reaction, this is D-galactose is there. Okay, so free aldehyde group is shown here. Free aldehyde group is shown at the top and the front carbon, at the first carbon atom CHO, and no need to no any attention is required for the remaining functional groups. All are hydroxy groups. Okay, but the top CHO group is converted into CH2OH. Let us see, the reagent is NaBH4. Okay, so this is known as D-galactose to D-galactitol. Okay, so this is the conversion using NaBH4. Okay, the second reaction is acetylation of alditols. Acetylation of alditols is done with the help of acetic anhydride. So acetic anhydride is used for the acetylating reagent, and 1-methyl imidazole this substance is used as a catalyst. After 10 minutes at room temperature, water and dichloromethane are added in the reaction mixture. Okay, so this is one of the type of workup of that reaction. The dichloromethane layer, which is at the bottom layer because it is a chlorinated solvent, it is washed with water and evaporated to dryness with the help of rota vapor. Okay, rota vapor instrument is there. It is widely used worldwide for the distillation of solvents from the reaction mixture. Okay, so that dichloromethane layer is washed with water and evaporated to dryness. The residue of alditol peracetates is dissolved in a polar organic solvents, generally acetone, for the chromatography. Okay, so for GC analysis, this residue obtained from this acetylation reaction is dissolved in a polar organic solvents, and that is generally acetone. And we know that the boiling point of acetone is 56 degrees Celsius, so it is easily converted into a vapor form. Okay, so the reaction, second reaction, that is acetylation of alditols, is shown here. So this is the reaction. Okay, so this is reduction, first step, NaBH4 reagent is used, and this is the second reaction. Ac2O means acetic anhydride. The reagent is acetic anhydride. Okay, and in that case all the hydroxy groups present in the alditol, that is D-galactitol, are acylated. Okay, so all the hydroxy groups 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all these 6 hydroxy groups are converted to acylated groups. Okay, so no hydroxy group is remain to acylate. Okay, so this is the reagent for the acylation of alditol. Okay, now the next method is enzymic method. So first one is HPLC, second one is GC, and the next one for the analysis of mono and disaccharides is the enzymic methods. So enzymic determination of D-glucose is discussed here. The enzyme glucose oxidizes D-glucose quantitatively to D-glucono-1,5-lactone. Okay, so this is the reaction shown here. Enzyme glucose oxidizes D-glucose. So D-glucose is a starting material. It is converted into D-glucono-1,5-lactone. So lactone is a cyclic ester is there. Okay, and it is conversion is done with the help of that enzyme. The product being hydrogen, the other product is hydrogen peroxide. Okay, side product is there. Then to measure the amount of D-glucose present, peroxidase is added along with a colorless compound that can be oxidized to a colored compound. Then in a second enzyme catalyzed reaction, the leucodye is oxidized to a colored compound which is measured spectrophotometrically or colorimetrically. Various dyes are used in commercial kits. The method using this combination of two enzymes and an oxidizable colorless compound is known as the GOPOD, glucose oxidase peroxidase method. Glucose, G for glucose, O for oxidase, PO for peroxidase method. Okay, so this is GOPOD method using two enzymes for the analysis of mono and oligosaccharides. Then the next method is mass spectrometry. Okay, so mass spectrometry is used for the mono and oligosaccharides, but this is not a routine method. Particularly, this is useful is the matrix assisted laser desorption time of flight, that is called MALDI-TOF. Matrix assisted laser desorption time of flight technique for analysis of a homologous series of oligosaccharides. Homologous series means these are the series which are differ in by a carbon atom. So methane, ethane, propane, butane, pentane, this is one of the type of homologous series found in alkanes. So such homologous series in oligosaccharides can be carried out by using this mass spectrometry using multi-top technique. Okay, then next one is TLC technique, that is thin layer chromatography, is used for the identification and quantitation of the sugars present in the molasses from sugar beet and cane processing. So molasses, we know that after crushing of that sugar cane, okay, when we in the sugar industry, when we process that sugar cane, the side product of that sugar cane industry or beet is nothing but molasses, and this TLC technique is used for the identification and quantification of sugars present in the molasses. Okay, then this is about we have discussed about the mono and oligosaccharides. Now our next topic is the estimation or analysis of polysaccharides. So what is polysaccharides? Polysaccharides means these are the sugar molecules or carbohydrates containing more than or they contain many monosaccharides units. Okay, and they may be in the numbers of hundreds, thousands, etc. Okay, so many monosaccharides molecules are joined together and they are forming a polymer known as polysaccharides. Okay, and the best one of the best digestible polysaccharide which we consume is the starch. Okay, so that's why we will limited our study for the starch estimation or starch analysis. So the estimation of total starch that we have to discuss here. So the principle for this method is the determination of total starch is based on complete conversion of the starch into D-glucose by purified enzymes specific for starch. Okay, and the determination of the D-glucose released by an enzyme specific for it. Okay, so this is the only principle for the total starch estimation. Okay, so total starch is a polysaccharide, mind well, and this polysaccharide, first of all we have to convert it into a D-glucose because D-glucose is a monosaccharide. Okay, so total polysaccharide, that is total starch, we have to convert first of all into a D-glucose by enzyme catalyzed reactions, and then determination of the D-glucose is done by again enzyme specific for it. The resistant starch, that is RS, is composed of starch and starch degradation products. Starch and starch degradation product, it is nothing but resistant starch that escapes digestion in the small intestine. Means the resistant starch is not digestible in our small intestine of our body. Okay, so that's why it is composed of starch and starch degradation products. It is not digested in our small intestine. Sorry. Now the procedure. So the procedure for this total starch estimation is discussed here. The flow chart is given here. Flow chart is given. Okay, and when you remember the flow chart, so it will be easy for you to remember the steps for this total starch estimation. First of all, we will directly see the flow chart. Okay, and the detailed description is also given for your information. Okay, so total starch estimation is done like that. So starch is taken, then it is gelatinized. So process is there, that is called as gelatinization process. Okay, then you will get a starch solution. Then that starch solution is get digested with alpha amylase. Alpha amylase is one of the enzyme. Okay, and this enzyme is digesting the starch solution. Okay, and you will get linear and branched fragments of amylose and amylopectin. You will get linear and branched fragments of amylose and amylopectin. Okay, then next step is that digest it with glucoamylase. Okay, then you will get D-glucose. So here we have started with starch and you are getting here D-glucose. So starch is a polysaccharide and D-glucose is a monosaccharide. So for the estimation of total starch, we have already discussed that you have to convert it first of all into a monosaccharide, that is a simple sugar, that is a D-glucose. Okay, and this is the steps, these are the steps involved in the conversion of that starch into a D-glucose. Then that D-glucose is treated with glucose oxidase, another enzyme, glucose oxidase is there, and again treat it with peroxidase and a leukodye. So you will get a color proportional to the amount of D-glucose released. Okay, and it is estimated with the help of spectrophotometrically or colorimetrically. Okay, so color dye is produced and that is estimated with the help of spectrophotometrically. So this is the procedure for estimation of total starch. The next point is degree of retrogradation of starch. Degree of retrogradation of starch. So upon storage of product containing cooked starch, the two starch polymers amylose and amylopectin associate with themselves and with each other, forming polycrystalline arrays. So polycrystalline arrays are formed. Okay, and this process of reordering of these substances is called retrogradation. Okay. The method of degree of gelatinization of starch can be used to determine retrogradation. Okay, so both the procedures are same. Then the next point is non-starch polysaccharides. So this is the estimation or polysaccharides which are non-starch material. Okay, they are also called as food gums or hydrocolloids. Food gums or hydrocolloids. So what are these food gums or hydrocolloids? Polysaccharides other than starch are always added as ingredients. So in the food materials or food products, these polysaccharides which are other than starch is edible or digestible, let us say, in our body, but other polysaccharides other than the starch, they are added as ingredients in the food products. These added polysaccharides along with the protein gelatin comprise the group of ingredients known as food gums or hydrocolloids. So what are food gums or hydrocolloids? These polysaccharides other than starch along with gelatin protein. So this constitutes or this is known as food gums or hydrocolloids. It is very difficult to develop a universal scheme for non-starch polysaccharide estimation. Okay, but a general scheme which works successfully is presented here. So this is the flow diagram for the isolation and purification of non-starch polysaccharides. Okay, so what is the procedure here? So let us see. The sample is taken, then it is freeze and dried. Then this dry sample is taken and it is from that dry sample of that food, lipid is extracted first. So lipid is extracted. So lipid is extracted means lipid is removed from that food sample. Then that fat free or lipid free sample is taken in aqueous ethanol extract. Okay, aqueous ethanol extraction is done. Okay, so here soluble sugars and other low molecular weight compounds and ash are taken in extraction. Okay, then the residue is digested with a protease enzyme. Okay, then you will get a protein free sample. Then in that protein free sample add sodium chloride salt and ethanol and again centrifuge. Okay, you will get polysaccharide precipitate. Then remove starch via digestion. So you have to remove that starch via digestion process. Okay, you can just remember this flow diagram. You will try to write or try to remember all the steps which are used for the isolation and purification of non-starch polysaccharides. Okay, then this starch free sample is centrifuged. Okay, in the residue you will get insoluble fiber, and in the solution, that is in supernatant solution, okay, you will get soluble fiber and starch hydrolysis products. Then add sodium chloride and ethanol, again centrifuge it, you will get polysaccharide precipitate. Okay, again dissolve it, dialyze it and freeze to dry. Then this dry polysaccharide extract is hydrolyzed. Okay, then after hydrolysis the sample can be estimated by using HPLC or GC analysis. Okay, so this is the flow diagram for the estimation of non-polysaccharides, non-starch polysaccharides. Okay, polysaccharides which are non-starch. The next point is pectin. So what is pectin? Pectin in a native fruit or vegetable is a complex mixture of polysaccharides. So this pectin is generally found in fruits and vegetables. Okay, and it is a mixture of polysaccharides whose structures depend on source, including the stage of development, that is degree of ripeness of the particular fruit of vegetable. Okay, one method employed for the pectin uses saponification in sodium hydroxide solution. Okay, so saponification method is used using NaOH, followed by acidification and addition of calcium 2 plus to precipitate the pectin. So after addition of calcium 2 plus, the product is known as calcium pectate, is collected, washed, dried and measured gravimetrically. So gravimetric analysis is used for the estimation of pectin. Precipitation with the quaternary ammonium salt and cetyl pyridinium bromide has been also used successfully. Okay, so this is all about the estimation of polysaccharides and including starch, total starch and non-starch polysaccharides. Okay, so this is all about today's lecture. In next video we will see the our remaining part. Only one lecture will be required, and that is dietary fiber. Okay, thank you very much.